A ver, las italianas aquí.
Sí, cuando estaba hablando con la nona, teníamos la nona.
Piazza Giacomo Matteotti or Piazza delle Erbe is a mix of historic buildings and bars with outdoor seating. Drinking a coffee, kissed by the sun and with a fantastic view of the Church of San Giacomo, is the best way to recharge. It was built around the 13th century to house Udine's new market during the city's expansion. The square is surrounded by ancient buildings typical of medieval noble architecture, some of which still have facades frescoed with geometric and floral decorations. The church dates back to 1398 and is dedicated to San Giacomo, elected protector of Udine's merchants who carried out their activities in the square, and is recognizable by the stone shells that decorate the facade. In the center there is a fountain from 1543, the work of the famous architect Giovanni da Udine, a student of Raphael, and the column of the Madonna and Child from 1487. For the land registry it is Piazza Matteotti, for the more romantic it is Piazza delle Erbe, for friends Piazza San Giacomo, but we are always talking about the same place. Today at night it is the heart of the movida of the young people of Udine. Today Piazza San Giacomo hosts numerous bars and is one of the most popular places in the city. Sheltered from the city traffic, children play and run in complete tranquility, while their parents enjoy an aperitif in the bars and cafés that surround the square. The street Via delle Erbe connects the San Giacomo Square with the Via Rialto, which is one of the main streets in Udine. Duranco Palace is the town hall designed by architect Raimondo Duranco in 1888, completed in 1925, finished in the early 1930s, in Liberty style. After the first project of 1888, a second project of the palace was presented in 1909, and the following year two other design solutions were proposed, one of which was definitively chosen. The works for the palace officially began in 1911, but were interrupted due to the war, and then finished in 1925. The internal finishings, however, saw the light and were completed only during the 1930s. Once completed, the palace became an example of Art Nouveau architecture in the city. The exterior of the palace is characterized by large vaulted colonnades. The walls were built in Istrian stone decorated with historical coats of arms. Bronze steel mounted on a quadrangular marble base on which the sculptor's italic signature is applied, reproduced in bronze and enlarged. The work is part of the research, begun by Mirko around the mid-50s, relating to the composition of vertical structures, totems precisely, characterized by an articulated form in space, where the repetition of the modules creates an ascending motion based on an alternation of full and empty spaces, of concave and convex masses. The garden, perhaps designed by Liceo Morpurgo, was created between 1907 and 1918. Connected to the palace's main courtyard by a loggia, it was arranged according to a traditional composition centered on the fountain with the nymph, sculpted by Leonardo Liso. Radically renovated between 2006 and 2007, it now serves as a link with Piazza Bologna and Piazza Duomo. The flower beds and stone walkways bordered by trees and hedges were reconstructed, and the neoclassical style loggia with barrel vault that leads to the Italian garden was restored. Udine Cathedral is the city's most important and imposing church. It is situated in the charming Piazza Duomo, a few steps from the main streets of Udine's city center. It was built in 1236 by Patriarch Berthold of Andechs-Morania in the place in which there was a church dedicated to Saint Jerome. In 1257 the church, which had a typical Franciscan structure, was destined to worship and dedicated to Saint Odoric. Following enlargements can be dated back to 1335, when Patriarch Bertram of St. Genesius started the construction of the Chapel of Our Lady of the Annunciation and consecrated the sacred building with the title of St. Mary Major. During the following centuries the church was subjected to various modifications. The side chapels were added in the 14th century, whereas in the 16th century, thanks to Domenico Rossi and Abbondio Stasio, the whole complex took on a Baroque style. In the 20th century, on the other hand, the salient facade was modified according to the 14th century architectural canons. Today it is still possible to see the Romanesque Gothic style of the cathedral brick facade, in which the portal of redemption stands out, recalling some important Christian themes. Next to the cathedral is the imposing bell tower, built by Cristoforo da Milano and dating back to 1441. Instead of being squat as it is today, it should have been soaring and surmounted by the statue of the Virgin. The original project, in fact, aimed at letting it communicate in height with the bell tower of the castle, where the statue of the angel stands out, thus symbolically recreating the Annunciation. The cathedral interior is dominated by Baroque style. Thanks to the magnanimity of the Manin family, whose mausoleums are preserved here, and to the 18th century reform, in fact, the interior architecture was made more gorgeous. The magnificent presbytery and masterpieces by internationally renowned artists stand out. In the Chapel of the Holy Sacrament you can see works by Giambattista Tiepolo. Other remarkable artists who contributed to enrich the cathedral are Pomponio Amalteo, Illinois Pordenone, Pellegrino da San Daniele, Illinois Torretti, Canova's master, Domenico da Talmezzo, Dorigny, the author of the vaults. If you like this walking tour, support us by subscribing to the channel, or commenting and liking this video. Situated at the foot of Udine's castle, the name of the square was changed several times. In the Middle Ages, in fact, it was called Piazza del Vino, Wine Square, because there was a dedicated market. In 1350 it took the name of Piazza del Comune, Square of the Town Hall, because the town council met there. Many buildings overlook this charming square, starting from the 15th century Loggia del Lionello, in Venetian Gothic style covered in white and pink marble. In 1550, when the Venetians arrived, it was called Piazza Contarina in honor of one of the lieutenants, while in 1866, with the annexation of Friuli to Italy, it was dedicated to Victor Emmanuel II. Only after the Second World War it was given its current name. On the other hand, on the embankment you can admire St. John's Loggia and Temple. The first was built between 1533 and 1535 according to the project by Bernardino de Morcote, the later is dedicated to the fallen for the country. The Bologna Arch by Palladio, which with its rustic ashlar work and St. Mark's lion on the top leads directly to the city's castle, does not lack creativity. The castle of Udine, symbol of Friuli, once the seat of the Patriarch of Aquileia and of the Venetian lieutenant of the fatherland of Friuli, became a museum on July 26, 1906 on the occasion of the celebrations for the 40th anniversary of the Union of Friuli with Italy. Today the castle hosts two recent museum installations on the ground floor. The Museum of the Risorgimento and the Archaeological Museum, both the result of a careful museographic choice accompanied by innovative multimedia supports. The Galleria di Arte Antica winds along the entire main floor with valuable works of art from the 14th to the 19th century, including paintings by Carpaccio, Caravaggio and Tiepolo. On the third floor, you can admire the Museum of Photography with 19th and 20th century images by the major photographers working in Friuli such as Pignat, Bugiatti and Brisighella. Very original is the Clock Tower, a work by Giovanni da Udine that can be dated back to 1527, surmounted by the statues of the two Moors that beat time. There are also some collections that can normally be consulted upon reservation. The numismatic collections, the gallery of drawings and prints, the sculpture collections and the plaster cast gallery. Furthermore, the castle has two important cultural services open to the public: the art library with over 45,000 volumes and approximately 350 periodicals, and the photo library which conserves more than 180,000 images of photographs, negatives and original plates.
Jadi setuju harus sambil.
What we see today at the top of the hill is an imposing 16th century building constructed after the terrible earthquake that on March 26, 1511 caused part of the previous structures to collapse. The need to proceed with the partial reconstruction of the castle soon transformed into a total renovation project entrusted to the architect Giovanni Fontana, originally from Lombardy but living in Venice. The work continued apace, with the employment of 500 workers. The first stone was laid on April 2, 1517. The construction of the castle, after this initial impetus, slowed down, especially due to the difficulty of finding funds, and the architect's original project was not completed. Other architects took over the management of the construction, among them Giovanni da Udine, who in 1547 designed an external staircase that from the courtyard on the north side allowed access to the central hall. A third design phase took place with Francesco Floriani, who in 1566 concluded some works inside the Parliament Hall. At the end of that year the vast space was completed, thus constituting a point of reference for the most prestigious initiatives for the city, and the pictorial decoration began, a true anthology of Friulian painting in the mid-16th century. In 1576 an internal staircase was built to go up from the atrium to the Parliament Hall, completing the essential lines of the new palace castle. All that would happen later did not substantially affect the original structure of the 16th century building, completed at the beginning of the 17th century. Piazza Libertà in Udine is the oldest square in the city. It represents the heart of Udine and is the starting point for many historical cultural itineraries. Other noteworthy monuments in the square are the fountain by Giovanni Carrara, an architect from Bergamo, the columns bearing the Venetian lion and the statue of justice, the statues of Hercules and Cacus and the statue of peace which was donated to Udine by Emperor Francis I to commemorate the peace treaty of Campo Formido. It is defined as the most beautiful Venetian-style square on the mainland and constitutes a harmonious complex of Renaissance buildings. This street leads to Piazza Primo Maggio, which is located at the foot of the castle of Udine and is the largest square in Udine. At the end of this street is situated the city gate Porta Manin, which is one of the oldest city gates in Udine. Porta Manin or Torre di San Bartolomeo or Porta Cividale is the oldest surviving tower in the city. It was built between 1273 and 1299 and was part of the third circle of walls that surrounded the city. It is the second oldest tower in Udine to have remained intact after the clock tower. The lower structure is original, while the upper floors were restored in the following centuries. The side passages to the gate were opened between 1934 and 1941. It is the traditional access to the historic center from the eastern part of the city. Before we enter the Piazza Primo Maggio, we decided to take the Via Giuseppe Verdi, which is a nice cobblestone road and a water canal. Ouch. Piazza Primo Maggio, in Udine, is a large square located at the foot of the castle, also known as Garden Grant, large garden, by the inhabitants. Elliptical in shape, trees and lawns branch off from the center, occupied by a fountain. It is a popular meeting place and often hosts fairs and city festivals. Originally it was a marshy area reclaimed and transformed into a space for markets and shows. Historically, these channels were very important for Udine. They brought life and prosperity to the city. Piazza Primo Maggio is a central place for city life, often the site of fairs, markets and festivals. The Sanctuary of the Blessed Virgin of Grace, better known as Madonna del Grazie, is one of the most important churches in Udine, located right in the center of the city. The ancient church was originally dedicated to the Saints Gervasio and Porteggio, when it was chosen to house an image of the Madonna, believed to be miraculous. This icon originally belonged to Giovanni Imo, lieutenant of the Republic of Venice in Friuli since January 1479, who received it as a gift from the Sultan of Constantinople, Mehmet II. One day in that same 1479, a cook from the castle seriously injured her hand, but was miraculously healed after devoutly invoking the image of the Virgin. For these reasons, the lieutenant thought that such a miracle-working image could not be preserved in a profane place, like the castle, and decided to take it to the nearby church. Tradition indicates September 8, 1479 as the date of the procession that accompanied the transport of the image of the Madonna from the castle to the small church. Giardino Storico Loris Fortuna is a historical garden. It's described as a large green space near the center of Udine, featuring flower beds, statues, and benches. The park also has a cafe near the main entrance and is known for being a peaceful and quiet place. It's easily accessible with parking nearby and is close to restaurants, shops, and bars. And this, my friends, is a public toilet.
Verso le, non so, verso le 10.
Va bene, alle 10, lunedì mattina alle 10 allora.
Ok, ciao. Ciao.
Toot. Via Mercato Vecchio follows the traces of the ancient walls, and this can be understood from the curvilinear course of the street. They were merchants' houses, shops on the ground floor and apartments on the upper floors. Today they have almost all been replaced by splendid buildings, one above all that of the Monte di Pieta.
A una gli faccio fare aspetta, lui
raccomanderei. Sì. E quanto c'è?
Thank you for watching this video. Like, subscribe and follow us for more videos like this.